Hey you guys, where we last left off, I had just created a function called initmat, and we can see what it does here is that it takes a reference to a matrix and a value, and it sets every single item in that matrix to that specific value. So the rows and columns that are part of the matrix, we iterate through all of them, and we access every single item inside of that matrix, and we set it equal to value. But now that I have this function and I want to test that it works, well, one of the best ways to test that it works is to simply print all the values inside of the matrix. So why spend my time writing something in main where I can create a function right away, which is what I'll do. So here I will edit mymat.h. Alright, we need to save. So I'm going to say void print mat, and it's going to take a reference to a matrix similar to initmat. Now that initmat has its function declaration, I'm actually going to copy it and we're going to save, and we're going to go back and edit mat.c. So we'll paste it here and we'll go about printing it. So what's nice about this print mat is that I will essentially be taking the structure of these for loops here, but instead of setting a value, something to a value here, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to print, and we'll say, I don't know, we'll go until 3 significant bits. And here, when we reach the end of a row, I'm going to print a new line to designate that. So this actually looks good to me. This double for loop is good because here I'm able to go and iterate through every row and column of the matrix, and here I just print what's there separated by a space. So here I print every single column of the row that I'm on. After this for loop, I print a new line, so that way when I go on to the next row, it can be shown on the next row. So that's pretty good. Now what I need to do is I need to call my print mat and pass it a reference to mat1. And that solves 2 functions, initializing the matrix with a specific value and printing the contents of the matrix. So we've written those 2 functions. Well, what comes next? How am I going to go about compiling this? Well, if we look here, our files are starting to get a little bit complicated. So I think it'll be wise to create a Makefile. So why don't we go about creating a Makefile? Here I'll have all, and I'll give it the targets, main.o, as well as mat.o. Simply I will do gcc main.o, mat.o, and let's call this executable matrix test. Now I need to specify what I want to do for main.o, which will include main.c, as well as my mat.h. And we will create the object file for main.c. Then we will have mat.o, which will take mat.c and my mat.h. And again, we will take mat.c, and we will generate the object code for that. Finally, we get to clean. Here we want to remove all object files, and then we want to remove our executable called matrix test. So this doesn't look too bad, pretty simple. But now when I compile and I just edit mat or just main, I don't have to worry too much about recompiling everything. Now it's all neatly fixed in my Makefile. Uh-oh, I have an error. Let's take a look at this. So it turns out because I did not include my stdio.h header file, didn't detect printf because printf is part of stdio. We will type make. Let's see what other errors. Oh, I'm missing a semicolon. What a classic error. I wonder where. Oh, right here in my print. On line 17 when I print. So now everything's compiled. You saw, I don't know if you saw, but here main.c got compiled without a problem. The problem was with mat.c. So down here, when it came to compiling, since main.o was created because it was compiled earlier, all we needed to do was compile mat.c. So why don't we run matrix test and hope we don't get a seg fault. Hey, that's awesome. So now we know that init matrix works and print mat or print matrix works. In the next video, we're going to go about creating our second matrix and our result matrix. And we're going to spice it up a little bit by having our second matrix be dynamically allocated. See you there.